Hello, everyone, and welcome to our A Day in the Life of a Civil Designer webinar, tips and tricks for civil engineering user. We are very excited to have Seth Cohen here with us today presenting. We're just going to go over some quick logistics before we go ahead and get started. All attendee lines will be muted. You can send us questions via the chat box throughout the presentation, and we will be answering those at the very end. The webcast additionally is being recorded and will be available either through an email that you'll be receiving after the presentation or on our YouTube channel, probably by the end of the day today. Any questions or anything else that may come up or that you have to bring up to us, please call us here at 305-445-6480 or shoot us an email at info@ddscad.com. All right, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Seth. Take it away.
All right, thanks, Alan, and welcome everybody. All right, so today, again, this list looks kind of maybe a little big, overwhelming. I'm going to try and get to a lot of these here. I just wanted to kind of have a webinar. You probably already, may have seen some, this cool new feature or BIM 360 or whatever. But in all honesty, at the end of the day, we all just kind of use Civil 3D or we use vehicle tracking or we use whatever it is. And I just wanted to kind of have a webinar about just as you're going through the day, some tips and tricks or just some things that I have encountered that make life a little bit easier. Again, I'll do my best to kind of cover this list here. This is what I've actually, kind of come up with, and we'll see how time permits for all of these here. All right. Let me just get out of PowerPoint. As you guys know, I'm not really a big PowerPoint user. All right, so let's just jump right into Civil 3D. Right, and the first thing I want to talk about is something kind of really just, and again, this is gonna be a combination of, I figured let me just show some AutoCAD stuff, Civil 3D stuff, whatever it is, just to kind of show, how to make kind of life a little bit easier during, throughout the using of Civil 3D or just AutoCAD in general. All right, and again, some of these you may or may not know. Like I said, throughout my years of training and my daily training of people and just support and everything else, these are some of the things that I've kind of noticed that might be lacking or just tips that might just kind of help the everyday user. All right, the first ones again are really simple. I'm going to start with just a few simple ones. All right, so if we open up Layer Properties Manager, a lot of people don't realize that this is not actually. Let me make this a little smaller here on this other monitor. Let's make that way. All right, so here's Layer Properties Manager right here, okay? And a lot of people don't realize that you can do a lot of stuff right within Layer Properties Manager. The first thing I wanted to show you is sometimes you want to actually just look up a layer and you want to kind of change its properties. And if you look at this drawing, I've got 236 layers. In the bottom here, you can kind of see that number right there. And if I wanted to just see a specific layer, like let's say something to do with the pipes. So right up here, a lot of people don't realize there's this filter. I see this all the time. They're scrolling, trying to find the layer. Instead, what you can do is just simply put an asterisk first. So first, just, let me just show that again. If you click once up here, all right, then put an asterisk, that's a wildcard, and then just type the word that contains the layer. So PIPE, and there you go. Right now I'm seeing all the layers that are pipes that have pipe in them, whether it's before it or after it. So that's a quick little tip just to be able to just kind of narrow down a specific layer, all right? One of the other things that a lot of people don't realize is this ability to right click in here. So if you right click on any of the layers, you get a whole bunch of context sensitive menus. I'm not going to go over all of them, but one that I really kind of like, let me actually just go to like the text layer of some sort, okay? If you want to isolate a specific layer and you know the layer that it's on or you're the entities that they're on, you can just right click here and choose isolate selected layers. And then within a second, you now have isolated that, right? That's a pretty straightforward, pretty simple command. And a lot of people don't realize it's right here. So if I just right click here and then isolate again, it just isolates that one, which I don't have anything on it. But you get the idea. It's a nice quick way to isolate a specific layer if you know the name. Now, what is that actually doing? If you're not familiar with this, if you look right at the on column, it's just turning them off or on. So you can either turn them all on by clicking once here, Control A, and then toggling this on, or the other tip I want to show you, a lot of people don't realize, some people will just undo until they get back to where they were. But what if you've drawn stuff in between the viewing of layers or the changing of layer properties? You don't want to have to undo the stuff you drew. Instead, there's a command called layer P. And you just keep pressing spacebar here, and you will eventually get back to where you were. It stores, I think, the last 10 to 15 layer states or something like that. So that's a quick little way to kind of get back to where you were in the past without having to do the undo command, right? So I could have drawn stuff and it would have been absolutely fine, okay? All right, one of my favorite commands that I use all the time is this list slope command. If I go to the Analyze tab here, let me get that out of the way. And if we go to the inquiry panel, it's right up here. It's called the list slope. I added to my quick access toolbar right here because I use it almost constantly. If I'm doing any kind of modeling or any 3D work, whether it's AutoCAD 3D or Civil 3D, obviously, I want to be able to measure, let's say, what's the slope between here and here, or I have a 3D entity from here and I want to measure it from there to there. What's that slope? So if I just pick this tool, and again, as I always say, you probably hear me say this 1,000 times, when you don't know what to do, look to the command line window. And the command line window, at first, people are like, well, how do I work this command? Or they select it. And if you look at the cursor, that's the pick box, that's the pick or select object prompt, right? So it's asking you to pick a 3D entity, which in this case, I have points. So if you look to the command line window, it says P for points. So I'll just type P space bar, and then I can, of course, snap here and snap here. And as you can see, it gives you the first elevation, second elevation, the difference, the grade, the slope, and the horizontal distance, which again, like I said, I love this command when doing design. It's truly helpful, making sure that, hey, is this a 5-foot offset? Is it 6 inches up above or below, etc. Okay. Now, again, if I start the command, I use the point option more than I use the select object option. So a lot of people don't realize you can change that to be the default one. First, just type CUI, and we're going to spend a little bit here in the CUI dialog box for some other tips that I want to show you. So if you're not familiar with the Customize User Interface dialog box, it's divided into 3 panes, one up here, one down here, and one over here. Anything you click on the left side here, it will update on the right side here. It's like a Windows Explorer type thing, right? You pick over here, and this updates over here. You pick another thing over here, and it updates over here. That's kind of how this works. This is your command section. So these are all the commands available in the world of AutoCAD, Civil 3D, Vehicle Tracking, Map 3D, whatever CUI you have loaded, okay? And you can kind of see that if you scroll down here, you can kind of see the, excuse me, the other CUI files I have, all right? So what I need to find is the list slope tool. And if you're not familiar with how to find the tool or the command, if you hover over the tool, you'll see it says there list slope CGS list. That's the actual command it's going to type in there. So I'll type CUI again. And I'll go to the command list and I'll type LIST space slope. And notice how it pops up. This tool is also available in the that's the Map 3D workspace, but I don't want to edit that one. I want to edit the Civil 3D one. So just click over here. This is the real command that gets activated, right? AECC CG list. So what you want to do is look for the macro command, the macro property, and this will be the actual command. If you're not familiar with this, you don't have to be a coder or a programmer or anything like that. It's pretty straightforward. These two ~C, that's a ~C, that's the escape. That's what it's saying. So almost every command, if you looked it up here, would have a ~C, it just runs the escape command. But then this is the actual command that is run by AutoCAD. So if you click at the end of it and you put a space, right, and then a P, because that's the prompt within the command, it'll activate it there. So that becomes the default option for the command. So if I click OK here, and then I click on the command, whether it's in the quick access toolbar or if it's in the ribbon, it doesn't matter. Notice my cursor, it immediately goes to the P option, which is just fantastic. That way I can actually just snap and then snap, and now I've got that. All right, it does go back to the object by default, it does, but that initial one simply starts it with the piece. That's a nice little kind of trick that you can do right within the CUI, okay? Staying on the CUI option or the CUI dialog box and how you can customize it and do things that really help your daily use of drafting or engineering or whatever you're doing. So I don't know about you guys, but I put all my labels in model space. That's just what we do. I don't bother with paper space anymore because I can't tell you how many times, and I'm sure you've encountered this too, You want to pan or do something in your site plan, and you have to, pan to the right, but then all your labels are stuck in paper space. So you try and figure out the distance that you moved left and the distance that you went up or down. It's just a pain. So it's better to put all your labels, in my opinion, in model space, and then you manage it with layers. As you can see here, I basically have layers for freezing text miscellaneous 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it just allows me to VP freeze it in the different viewports or different sheets. That's really kind of how I work with it, okay? So as you can see here, everything's in model space, including this mtext and all this other kind of stuff. So I wanted to show you some easy ways to manipulate. And of course, if you're doing any kind of Civil 3D labels, which these are, that's a Civil 3D label, right? That's calling out a detail, MS10, okay? This one here, although it looks like a multi-leader, is a Civil 3D label. It's just oriented to the view, okay? Notice how it's on its own unique layer. That way I can VP freeze them in other plans, right? So if I'm in the grading plan, that's a totally different layer that I would use for those, okay? And that's basically how you kind of manage it. It's a little bit, more managing, but it's so much easier. I can literally delete this layout, get a new layout, and I'm done. Just view to the area that I want or pan around. It does not matter. And like I said, I've had too many times where users or the engineer says, hey, can you change the scale of this, right? And if you change the scale, then that you have to change where the notes are, move them all around. It's just it's just so much of a pain. I like it in model space, okay? So some tips to kind of working within these labels. So for instance, let's say I want to edit this dumpster pad label. Again, it's a Civil 3D label. It's not a multi-leader, okay? If you double click it, it automatically opens up the properties palette. Now to edit this text or override this label, you then click up here, edit label text. But wouldn't it be nice if you could double click any Civil 3D label, whether it's a pipe label, a note label, a line and curve label, you name it, and enable it so that you could open up the edit label text dialog box, which I like to do. So here's how you do that. It's actually not as difficult as you think. So if I go ahead and select this first, all right, and you can select it afterwards, but I'm going to run the list command, LI spacebar, all right, and that opens up the, whoops, I went to the palette. Let's get rid of that real quick. So LI, and I'll pick that, and I'll pick my entity. This gives you the object type. You have to have this for this to work. I'm going to select this text, make sure you don't get any spaces or anything, and I'm going to do a Control-C, or of course, you can just right-click copy. Now, type CUI. So in the world of AutoCAD, there's something called double-click actions. If you're not familiar with these, it's fine. AutoCAD entities work this way. Like when you double-click a piece of text, what happens? It opens up the text editor. When you double-click a block, what does it do? It allows you to edit that block definition. These are what's called double-click actions. So I want to have a double-click action that allows that text to be edited when I double-click it. So what you do is I'm going to right-click here and choose New Double-Click Action. Now, you give it whatever name you want. I like to have some standard naming convention, so I'm going to call this C3D. I don't like spaces because I just, the interface always kind of can act flaky if you have spaces, but it shouldn't be a problem. So I'll say C3D and then gen label, all right? And I'll just press enter. If you look up here, right over here, this is where you're going to paste the object name. So I'm going to do a Control-V here, all right? So that puts that in. I'm just going to press enter. Now, what I need to do is I need to associate what double-click action I want to occur when I double-click this entity. So if you're not familiar with this, basically what I would have done just beforehand, if I select this and run the edit label text that would appear here, you'll see it's the edit label text command, which is right here, all right? So this is the command that does that action, edit label text right there, as you can see in the CUI right there. So all you have to do is drag this next to the double click action and you're done. So if I click OK here, and now if I double click this label, it goes right into the double click or the edit label text, dialog box, and I can now enter data, whatever I want to do. That is so much faster and makes life a lot easier. Now, here's the cool thing. Let me go to my stormwater plan. I want to be able to do the same thing for, let's say, a specific storm label. I want to add some like additional text just for this one here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and select this label style or this label, and I'll do the list command. And this one is called AECC underscore structure underscore label. I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to Control C or right click copy. I'll type CUI again. And you can do this for every label type that you might edit, whether it's a spot elevation label from a surface, whether it's an alignment station offset label. Once you do one, go to your double click action, right click, duplicate. And what I'll do is I'll simply go over here, click on this one, and I'll call this one STRUC for structure label. I'll go over here, Control A, Control V, press enter, click OK, and now I've duplicated that. It's that simple. So I can do this for any label type that I want. Now when I double click on this one here, click OK, I'm now actually editing that label, same exact way that you would normally do if you went over here, right, and select this, edit label text, right? It's just much faster to do it that way. So that's a nice, quick, easy way to do it. And again, you can just copy or duplicate that double click action and it just works automatically. So that's a really nice kind of way to do that, okay? All right, let's talk about feature line styles and a quick little trick here for a feature line style. So let me go to let's actually look at this alignment here, or this drawing here. You'll notice I've got my grade breaks in this drawing, all right? And where are they coming from? If I go ahead and select this, let me go into my model space here. That's in my geometry file, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and right click and I'll go ahead and open this XREF to see what happens here, or see where this is. Now, if I select this entity, you might think it's just a 2D entity, but this is my actual feature line that I am using to model. Now, not in this file, I copy pasted it from my model file into here. But how come it's actually honoring this? Now, you could say, oh, it's probably a feature line style. Well, basically what I've done, if you look at the feature line style, I'm using a feature line style called underscore generic feature by block. How does this work? So check this out. If I go ahead and change this to, let's say, pavement asphalt, notice how the layer updates automatically. Or I'm sorry, I shouldn't say it updates automatically. The layer controls this entity. Now, what I'm showing you with feature line styles is an easy way to say, hey, for plottable feature lines, right? For feature lines that you want to plot, you can set this up so you don't have to have a specific feature line style for each one individually. You can have one for all of them and simply set the layer, and it updates the feature line style to the current layer's property, or to the layer that it's on's properties. The way this works is very simple. If you go to the settings tab, go to general, multi-purpose styles, and my feature line styles are right here. Here's the underscore generic underscore feature or feature by block. Let's go ahead and just go and see what it does. So all you have to do, it's really straightforward and simple. And again, this is not just for feature line styles. This is with anything, any Civil 3D style. If you set the display to layer 0 and by block, no matter what layer it's on, it'll take on that layer's properties. And that's actually kind of a unique way of controlling the display of specific Civil 3D objects, all right? You could have an alignment label style, or I'm sorry, an alignment object style that's set this way, and then whatever layer it's on, it is controlled by the layer. That way you don't have to have 10,000 styles. You can just have the style controlled by setting to layer 0 and by block. And that's how it works. It works just like an AutoCAD block. So an AutoCAD block works the same exact way. If all the entities within a block, like a circle, a piece of text, a line, etc., are on layer 0 and set to by block, they will take on the current or the block's layers properties. That's just basically what's happening. And that's how this works. So if I change this back to grade break, it takes on that layer's properties, which then controls the color, line type, line weight, etc. Okay, so that's a nice, quick, easy way to do that. All right, for those of you that use data shortcuts or data references, all right, I wanted to show that this is a bug, and I have reported it. But for many versions, I don't know if you guys have ever, if you use dynamic input, you know, that's basically the fields that pop up here, right? If I draw the line command, see the fields that come up for distance, angle, etc. Or if you're measuring something, or if you select an entity, right, and you hover, you get the dynamic, input pop up, right? So you see the dimensions pop up. right? That's coming up because of dynamic input, which is right down here. I love dynamic input. I understand some people don't like it. They say it gets in the way. You kind of get used to it because of the advantages to using it so much, okay? But sometimes this thing just shuts off. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. I was trying everything, but one day I just kind of figured it out. So, and again, this is just one of them. I think there are some other times that it does this as well. So keep an eye on dynamic input right here, okay? So if I go ahead and expand my surfaces, and I'll go ahead and just drag this. Now watch what happens when I drag this surface in here. Notice how dynamic input immediately shuts off. So that's kind of the bug. Again, just be aware of that. That's kind of one of the ways that it's doing that. Again, I wasn't trying to show bugs, but I figured, hey, since I use dynamic input so much, and I know I have so many users who use it, I was having a couple say, how come it shuts off all the time? That's one of the reasons. There's some other times it's doing it as well, and I have not yet resolved that. But again, you would just basically turn that on. I think F12 is also the shortcut. Yeah, F12 is your shortcut to turn it on or off, okay? So just be aware of that, okay? All right, let's look at something else here that I find I use a lot. All right, so I do a lot of roadway work, okay, but this could be used in any kind of tip where you want the exact length of a specific entity or a specific cross drain if, let's say, you're following DOT standards. So for those of you not familiar with DOT pipes, if you tell the contractor, if you're giving an estimate, usually if you're following DOT specifications, they do something called, they subtract the F dimension. So if you look at I'll just show it to you here real quickly for those of you not familiar with it. If I go to the design standards here, my internet's not the best at the house here, but if I go to DOT standards, you'll see that, let's just do a quick little search. I forget the name. It's a cross drain. There we go. There we go. So we'll click that. So basically the DOT doesn't want to pay the contractor for the section of pipe that's within the mitered end section, right? So if you look here, the contractor doesn't get paid for the F dimension, right? Pipe included in mitered end section because it overlaps, right? But that said, the F dimension is located in this table right down over here. So based upon your slope and your pipe size, it tells you the F dimension right there, okay? Now, that said, when you create your pipes, the contractor still wants to know the increments or the pipe length, the true pipe length. Now, typically, if it's RCP, it's 8-foot increments. As you can see here, this is a 48-foot linear foot pipe. Now, that said, if I were to select this pipe, you will notice it does not have a 48-foot length. It's 34.069. So how is that actually happening? I'm going to show you that in a second as well. But one of the things I wanted to show you was how to get this to kind of work so it goes toe to toe, because that's what the contractor wants to actually know is the toe to toe length when using a DOT mitered end section as your standard, okay? So basically, what I like to do is I draw a line. So let's say I have a cross drain at 51 plus a pair. So I'm going to go ahead and just snap here and go perpendicular, all right, to there. All right, now, so I have a line here. Again, I'm going to make sure my dynamic input's turned on here, okay? And so this, let's say the length of pipe needs to be 56 feet. So hover over here, lengthen. Now, because I have dynamic input turned on, notice the two fields that are populating. The first one is the additional, and I've probably shown this tip before, but I'm just kind of mentioning it again in case you weren't on the first webinar, whenever that was. But the first dimension or the first distance that's coming up, the 21.268 right there, if I type it in, that's additive or subtractive, depending on which way I move my cursor, right? If I go down here, it'll actually go this way. If I go this way, it goes that way, right? So it's additive. But I want a total length. So if I press tab within the dynamic input fields, that's the total length. So I'm going to type 56. And just to kind of make sure this is correct, if I hover, you'll see it says 56, all right? So I'm gonna then take this here, I'm gonna move it to the end there, because of course, I'm gonna center this pipe that I'm drawing here across the center of the road, right? And so now I'm gonna go ahead and select one of my structures or pipe objects, and I'll go ahead and click on Edit Pipe Network. Now I am using the DOT parts catalog, but this can work with out of the box Civil 3D. Just basically, as long as you're displaying the model of the style, then it'll actually also allow us for this to work too. So I'm going to pick on cross drain 1 to 4, 24 inch, and I want a 24 inch storm cross drain, and we'll just click here, and I'll go ahead and snap here and snap here. Now, of course, based upon how this this pipe or these structures were done within parts editor or the parts catalog, as you can see, it's not really going to the end of that. So how do I get this to go to the toe? So first off, I'm going to move this so I can change the rotation easily to just somewhere along this. It does not matter. I'm going to go nearest right there. I'll then take the rotation grip and I'll just snap that way. I now have the rotation. Pretty simple. Now to get to the end of this, from this point here, because that's the toe-to-toe length that the contractor needs to know to order their pipe, I'm going to go ahead and pick on this grip first. As I always say, when you don't know what to do, look to the command line window. There's an option for base point. So we're doing grip editing, and this is available with any AutoCAD or Civil 3D entity. It's not just for this one. So I'll type B for base point. I'll snap here and I'll snap there. I now went right to the toe. I'll do the same thing over here, press escape, select this, pick that grip, B for base point, snap, and then, where's my endpoint, right? There, and now I've got it. Now, if you look here, this label is not displaying the correct one. If I go ahead and pick this pipe, the true length is 42 point something or other, but I want this to display in that 8-foot increment. So if I select this, I've created a custom label style that automatically gets that in there. Now, this was kind of a tedious task, but and if you guys want this, just email us and I'll send you a copy of a drawing, an empty drawing with this label style. Basically, if you look at the pipe label style, and if we look at the plan profile section and the expressions, I have created an expression for 1 to 2, 1 to 2 elliptical, rounded 1 to 4, and so on, because those are the most commonly used ones that I use. And what it is this expression here. If I go to the edit expression, I had to go into the part itself, because this is DOT now, and I actually had to edit every size. It's just an if-then kind of expression. Basically, it's saying if the inner pipe diameter is equal to 1.25, then grab this length and add it to the 2D length. And yes, I had to figure out that length for each size. But again, there was no common property that I could find or some formula. It just was this weird number for it was an odd number for every one of them. So I just did it for every pipe size that I was using. That's all. Okay. Again, if you want that label style, just let me know and we can email it to you. Okay. All right. I don't know if you guys use tool palettes at all, but I have customized tool palettes for many companies as a good way to standardize. But for one thing I'm finding that I used to do all the time was details. So if you look here, I've got all my details here that are basically, roadway, I've got water, I've got storm, and that's a nice way to organize them. And you can see here, it grabs them by the name, etc. Now, the only problem with putting them on tool palettes is that if you change things, like the name or something, it actually doesn't update the tool palette. You have to go into the tool palette and edit it. And I was kind of finding that sometimes can be a little bit of a pain. Or if you want to add a block to let's say a drawing, you have to then add it to the tool palette. It's kind of this overhead of editing and managing that's kind of a pain. So in I want to say 16, but I can't remember. If I go to the insert command, it opens up this palette, okay? In the past, I will say this was slow, but now it works really well. And I recommend you do this. Instead of actually using palettes for blocks, just use the browse block libraries and then navigate to, let's say, I'm in the DOT workspace. I'll just pick on this one here, just to grab at that one. So this is going to reach inside that drawing and load all the blocks within it. And as you can see, I've already done this for a few of my details. And as you can see, let me get rid of that one. We'll just pick on this one here. And it does a pretty good job of actually kind of displaying these. And as you can see how fast it is, it used to be really slow and I hated it. So that's why I stuck with palettes. But now it's pretty fast and you actually have the ability to do extra large icons, a list of details, etc. You can even see some properties of whether it's a dynamic or not. This works really well. So I was going to say basically use this insert and then just browse for your block libraries. So this might take redoing your blocks where you put all your blocks, categorized into water details or erosion control details, roadway details, etc. That way you can actually have a library of just those specific blocks, and then you just browse to them using here, and then then you just click on it, and then basically it brings it into the drawing as a block definition. Okay, as you can see, that's how you can do it. Okay, so I kind of like that now. Like I said, I'm going to abandon palettes now from now on because this just works much better now. It really does a pretty good job. All right. Let me go over an example here of a problem that I was encountered. So I was given a project. So this project went out to bid. It's a complete project. And the contractor came back with their bids, and it was overbid by $2 million. Because I don't know if you guys are encountering this. I'm assuming you are. Construction costs have probably doubled, if not tripled in some cases for pavement and other things. I think they're really taking advantage of it. Hopefully, I don't have any construction people on the line. But anyway, so basically, what we had to do was, because this is DOT funded, you have to do a minimum of a halfway of the project and see how much that costs. So project manager came to me and said, hey, Seth, I really need to get the quantities. Like, the contractor got the bid. We got to get this job started, construction, but we need to find a good stopping point. Can you get me, see what half the project is, and then basically kind of figure out if we can get any more past that based upon quantities or based upon, how much it would cost. So I figured that out. I first went half, which was basically, I think, about right up here. But then I said, you know what? I can't do that because I've got to get to this part here, which is, we're in the middle of super elevation. You're not going to stop the road. This is a dirt to paved road kind of project. So I basically stopped the project here where the normal transition begins, begin normal crown, okay? And so because I plan ahead and I always do my quantities with pay items, if I hover over here, you'll see that. Actually, not the pile line. Let's get the shape here. Notice how it says pay item 011011. If I were to open up Entity Manager here, actually, the f.ribbon tab is not open. If it isn't, you just type f.ribbon tab if you're using the f.workspace. And I'm not going to click it, but if I clicked Entity Manager, it opened up this palette, and I use Entity Manager to do all my roadway work. I even do it for site design because it just makes life so much easier for counting quantities, okay, if that's what you have to do. And so because I set every entity up like that, what I can do is I'm going to draw a line here, and I'll just go perpendicular to my alignment, right? That's this line here. And what I'll do is I will simply lengthen this all the way across and just lengthen this all the way across, because what I have to do is I've got to trim out all my quantities. And this is how simple this is. So first off, I want to get rid of any quantities past this. I'm going to just do a selection window like this and press delete in the keyboard because I don't need those quantities anymore. Of course, I did a save as because this will be another phase of the project. They will actually go in and do it. Let me actually turn off all my references too. I don't really care to see those. So let's go ahead and unload those. I just did that through my reference palette. But now what I want to do, let me go ahead and delete these. I got some sediment barrier right there too. And we'll just delete that. And now I've got this hatching. So I'm going to run the trim command, all right? And again, when you don't know what to do, look to the command line window. T for cutting edge. So T for cutting edge. And then I'll click on that as my cutting edge, press enter. And now I'll slowly hover and press enter. Hover, click. Hover, click. As you can see, it does work with hatching very well. And you just kind of have to hover and see it kind of go away. That's the biggest thing is just waiting for it to disappear. And there we go. Let me do that again. I pressed enter too many times. I'll do T for cutting edge and pick there. That's my pavement. And hover, click, and click that. T. And I think that's a surface. Is that a surface? Nope, I got pot lines there. Yep, we'll get rid of that. And get rid of that. And pick that. That. I should do a crossing window now. There we go. We're good. All right, and then press escape. And now I'm good to go. And because I actually did this with quantity QTO or quantity takeoff, I can now, without using DOTs, I can go to the Analyze tab because he wanted to get. This is how I figured out the total quantities very quickly. All right. I first went to QTO Manager here, and right now I have no quantity manager file. I'll go to Open, pick Florida DOT. I'm going to go ahead and browse. And if you look here, even if you don't use the state kit, you can still download it and install it and use it. If you go to Data, Pay Item Data, you're going to pick this AEC merge.xml file, And then for the categorization file, I'll pick on the Florida categories, click OK. This will load the Florida DOT pay item database. That's everything. And now what I can do is simply go to takeoff and go to summary. I want a total. I'm not going to do a selection set. I'll do the entire drawing, and then I'll just turn that off and click compute. And so something that would normally take half a day to a day, I can basically simply take all of this data right here. Here are all my quantities. I'm done. I take that into a CSV or an Excel spreadsheet, recalculate it based upon the contractor's costs, and I could say to him, yeah, we're under the budget and we're good to go. So again, this is why I recommend, no matter what, you should always have some sort of pay items associated to it, especially if it's something that you're managing or if you're doing estimates and things like that. Again, it's just really simple and really straightforward. All right. All right, let's talk about the topic I have is we live in 3D, so let's use it. All right. So again, in Civil 3D, you're in a 3D model, right? That's the key thing. Everything that you do is 3D. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I had a project that a user was coming to me and saying, hey, I think my quantities are off, but I can't really tell, and I don't know why the roadway model is messing up and it looks so bad, or the quantities are coming off so much. And I said to him, I said, hey, did you take it into 3D? He didn't really know what I was talking about because he wasn't as fluent in Civil 3D. And I'll show you what I'm talking about in a second here. Am I in the right file? Yep, should be. Hopefully this won't take too long to open. All right. Actually, I think I want to be in this file here. Probably should have got rid of some of the layouts because that's taking so long for it to regenerate. All right, come on. Of course, if you have any questions at any time, please just feel free to type them in the chat panel. There we go, finally opened up. All right, let me go ahead and go to open here because I have the wrong one. I want to go into, I believe it's this one here. Yeah, this one. All right, and I will close this one just to free up some RAM. So let's close this one here. And I won't save it. All right, so in this one here, if I were to look at the, I think he already did the volume calcs here. Actually, no, we did not. So let's just create one real quickly here. So I'll just go here and I'll call this one road, earthwork, and we'll pick our EG, and we'll pick our road. Or sorry, not a road, our subgrade, right? Always pick the subgrade. And if we look at the quantity, I've got 27,000 cubic yards of cut and only 11 of fill, which again, you should know your project, of course, see if that's kind of a lot. And basically what happened was this. I said to him, hey, did you check it in 3D? That's the first thing. So let's go ahead and pick our subgrade. So I'll go ahead and go over here, a little trick here. If you just right click here and choose select. Right now it's set to a style that should be, it's no display. So let's set that to a border display. And I'll go ahead and take this into the object viewer. Probably have too many files open here. Come on, don't crash on me. Not that Civil 3D ever crashes, right? But all right, so right click here, object viewer. And like I said, we live in a 3D world, so look at it in 3D. So I left click and push up, as you can see, right? There's something going on with the road model, right? And that's what's causing a lot of that, that huge amount. Of course, basically there's something going down to 0, and that's what that means. And of course, just upon further investigation, if I were to select this feature line, which is being targeted for the right of way, and hover over the script, keep an eye on the status bar, another little tip here. If I just hover over this, right, it's at 0 elevation, right? If I hover over this one, you'll notice it actually has an elevation of 10 something or other. It hasn't popped up yet, but you get the idea, okay? So again, we live in a 3D world, and make sure you check your stuff. One of the other things too about just kind of staying focused on that subgrade topic is this. I've had a lot of users get their volume calculations wrong. And because what they're doing is when they pick the surface, they don't pick or when they create the surface for the volume calculations, they don't pick the right one. If you're doing a subgrade surface, you should take it in 3D no matter what, whenever you do volume calculations, and always check to make sure you're seeing that little lip. Again, we live in a 3D world, and of course, as you can see, something's off there. I'd probably want to fix that. It's not too much of a quantity off, but I still want to make sure I fixed it. But it looks like we have curb and gutter here because it's using the subgrade surface. So again, use Civil 3D to its full capabilities because it does really let you see exactly what's going on. In fact, we have one project where somebody did that, and they didn't look at it, and they were using the top surface to get their quantities, and of course, you can't really, you don't want to be doing that. Okay. All right, let's see what time. It's 2:40 here, so let's keep going. All right, so one other thing I wanted to show you was a little tip of vehicle tracking. So a lot of people don't realize that they have this functionality. So I have this profile here, and let's say, now again, this is a road, so but this is actually, you can use this in a site design. So if you're going over a driveway, you could create an alignment that goes over a surface real easily and see how it kind of looks. All right. So basically, the first thing you have to do is you have to have a style for this to work. The point here is to show vertical clearance for a truck, for a car with a trailer on the back of it, or whatever. Okay. So the first thing you need to do is you need to have a profile view that can be set to 1:1. All right. So I'll just go ahead and edit this one. I'll select it, right click, edit profile view style. And I'll go ahead and go to the graph tab, and I'll just change the vertical exaggeration to 1 because this does not work with a vertical exaggeration. All right. So I'll go ahead and just zoom to the beginning here. And what you do is you just go to vehicle tracking. Now, of course, you have to have the collection for this to work, okay, for you to have, or you have a separate license of vehicle tracking, not a network license. They basically sell you the collection now. That's all how it works. So if I go to vertical clearance here, it will, of course, activate and load all the libraries. And then it says a fatal error. Let's just do no to all this. Actually, let's just end it completely here. Go to details here, and we'll just end that. Hopefully I didn't save anything. If I did, we'll just get back to it if I have to. All right, come on, open up for me. There we go. All right. So I was showing you guys vehicle tracking. So let's go ahead and, excuse me, we'll open up this one. I'm gonna cross my fingers and hope it doesn't crash again. It should be fine. I think it was just, I had too many drawings open probably. All right, so let's go ahead and just select this again. We'll right click here and we'll go to the profile view style, change it down to 1, and click OK. And we'll just zoom in here. We'll go to vehicle tracking and pick vertical clearance. All right, I'm gonna go in here and type in WB 53. I'll expand this. I want the truck and tractor, and I'll click on proceed here. And basically what you're doing, you just go with the defaults. You can change some of the settings if you want to, but you don't really need to. And what you're picking, it's kind of weird. It says select object to analyze. What it should say is select profile. So you're picking a profile, go with the default values, click yes, and it will project that truck all along the path. I've used this many a time for site design. Now, again, this is a road, so nothing special, spectacular is messing up. But with a site, it allows me to see if I have clearance. You'll basically see a little red. Here's I don't have anything steep here, but you'll see a little red section if it is going to actually hit your profile. It also, if it's really steep, it'll actually stop it from modeling or projecting that because it can't figure it out. Now, is it dynamic to the profile itself? And the answer is no. So if I were to change this profile to, let's say, something like this, notice how it doesn't update that. You actually just redo it. Just delete it and just rerun the command. It's a pretty straightforward kind of command, okay? All right, I only have 15 minutes left here, so I want to actually talk about some quarter modeling and grading techniques. All right, let me go ahead and close out of this, and let's open up a couple of files here. Let's open up this one here. Go into here, and oops, wrong project. All right, so let's talk about some roadway modeling techniques that I've kind of encountered that just throughout using it all the time, just make life a little bit easier. So the biggest one, and this is actually a kind of a recent kind of methodology that I've decided to go down. The reason being is, so the basic job here, what I've done is I've created a couple of feature lines here. You'll see that I've basically I'm using a feature line to control the left and right side of the ditch here. Okay, so I've got a DB right English. This is the name of the road, right? And then I have a DB left here, right? So this is a feature line, and basically I'm doing a very simple way of using a feature line to control the ditch bottom. It's just an easier way for this type of job to control that. Now, the problem that I was always encountering is, let's say you need to split a region, you try it and there's a certain area it needs to do something a little bit different. You want to tweak it, so maybe you're doing a different conditional or something like that, okay? And the problem with having an entire side of the road, or just doing it for both sides of the road, is when you split it, you're basically it's split for both, right? And so what I've come to actually use instead is I do a separate region or baseline for the left and the right side. It makes life a lot easier. That way I'm just managing the left side with its own set of regions, and then I manage the right side with its own set of regions. That way, they're independent of each other, and I don't have like little slivers of regions because I have something going on at this station on the left side and then this station on the right side. So I've got the little thing in the middle that I have to control. So the way that I did this was this. As you can see, it's a really simple assembly. I have one for the intersection, that's no left. I've got one for the left side only, that's the one that's working right now. But let's go ahead and just do this for the right side. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy this. I'll just run the regular copy command here. And I'll just kind of pop this up here. I'll use polar tracking to make it go that way. And I'll just select it. And I'll just give it a name of RT. All right. And of course, what I can now do is just simply select these. And I'll just mirror. And I'll pick here. And I'll give it the R. Click OK. Give it the R. Click OK. And no, you can't press enter. It's a weird dialog box. I've reported this to Autodesk saying, hey, it'd be great if I could just press enter and not have to click the actual OK button, but that's how it works. And delete R, OK. All right. And then I will just delete that side there, okay? So the way I've got this working is, I think I showed this trick in another webinar, but I always like to go with a target not found by default, because what it allows me to do, and I call this the hinge point, that's what this is called right here, okay? So this, of course, is a common thing that happens everywhere, but then I have this ditch bottom that I'm targeting. This is a link slope to elevation, so it targets that ditch bottom at 1 to 4, right? And basically just is targeting the feature line. So the target not found, and again, this sounds totally backwards and weird, but the target not found will always work until you target the not found. Again, it sounds weird, but that's how it works. Then what I do is basically off of this one, I have a target not found again, which will work unless it's targeted. And then I have a target found, which will also work when it's targeted. But by default, if I target nothing, it just does this path up to here and then does this one, which is just daylighting. All right, so let's go ahead and let's set this up on the right side. So as you can see, I already have the left side working. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and select my quarter model. And before I begin, what I like to do is I like to make the left side and name it. So one thing I found is you actually have to add an additional baseline that is a copy, or it's just not a copy, but it's the same exact alignment and profile. You cannot put the left and right sides in the same baseline. It doesn't work, okay? And that's okay. So, but what's nice is when you go to edit your baseline, you want to have it make, be a name that makes sense. So right now this is just baseline English, and if you see here and I hover or click on these, right, that's selecting these this baseline. So I'm going to call this one English. I'm just going to actually name it here and do RT like that. All right. Trust me, this will help me later on when I go to make edits. So now I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change. It's just changing the name. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a baseline. And I'm going to go ahead and pick on English Street. Click OK. And of course, I'm going to pick the profile. And now I'm done, right? But now if I go into the quarter properties again, you'll see it's called baseline English Street, but there's no left. So I want this to be named English Left. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go ahead and just change this R to an L and click OK. You'll see why in a second why I'm doing this. So now what I have to do is add a region just for the right side. So I'll click add region. Now when I click here, what's it prompt you for? Hey, you have multiple baselines. Which one do you want? This is why you name it. Okay. Actually, I just realized I did it backwards, didn't I? Let me just check that. Yeah, I think I did it backwards. Yeah, this should be the left, isn't it? Yep. Someone's probably saying, hey, Seth, you did that wrong. All right, so this should be, this should be the left. And since it can't have the same, I'm going to do number one real quickly because you can't have duplicate, so it won't let you do that. So I'll just do here. This is the right, and we'll just leave that. That's fine. Hit OK. All right, now let's select the baseline here, or select the quarter model, and we'll click on Add Baseline, not baseline, whoops. Add Region, click, and then English Right, click OK here, and then I'm going to start from whatever station I want this to start at. So of course I'll start at where my job begins. So that's over here. And again, here's the cool thing. Again, I could have actually just done a left side here, but I did do this here, so I can just snap to here. So this is my intersection one. And it says, okay, create a region. What assembly do you want to use? I'll do the right one. Click OK. And then for targets, for my EG, I'll just do this here. Click OK. Now, I have a naming convention. Like I said, I went over this in a previous webinar. I think it was one of the first quarter tips and tricks. I have a naming convention that I like to call out, or that I do, that basically helps me for modeling. The whole numbers, you see the 1.1s, 1.2, 1.2a, etc. Basically, if it has a whole number, whether it's 1 or 1.1, that is a conditional subassembly. So that makes it easy for me to recognize, oh, I have to target this one to activate it. The ones with letters at the end of them are actual subassemblies that will be targeting things like a feature line or a horizontal entity, etc. So this one here is my 1A, and it needs to target the ditch bottom. That's what DB stands for. So I'm going to click over here. This is a feature line. I'll select from drawing. And if you look here, I put this on a specific layer on purpose. You'll see why in a second. But basically, I could actually do select by layer as well, and I could just pick it. But I'll click OK here and click OK. And then press enter. And now it automatically does that side. Again, the benefit of this is, if this is my right of way, let's say through this area here, I've got to do some specific editing. The cool thing is this: if I go to split region, I'm not splitting it. Let's say the left side works fine, which it doesn't, but let's say it did. I don't have to worry about it. I can click here and say, I'm going to split this from here to here, and then change some sort of condition with just this region, right? So the whole right side could be editing or doing something totally different, and I can just change the right side. It makes my life so much easier now, and not have to manage these extra little tiny regions that I don't want to have to deal with at all, okay? So I recommend you kind of do that. It really saves a lot of time, all right? I've only got 5 minutes here. So let me show you one other additional kind of technique that I really, and this will be a site type job. All right, so this will be up here. Let's go to this project here. And here's my model file. So one of the things I find people doing a lot is they forget that a corridor model doesn't have to be a road. It can be anything. If you look here, I am using it as a road, but do I have any alignments in this file? If we expand this, do I have any alignments? The answer is no. I have 0 alignments. Instead, I have a feature line. This feature line is being used as to define this corridor model. Then what I do is I take this corridor model, I make a surface out of it, of course, which is then linked to it. And if you look here, whenever I'm coming off of that off of that for this driveway here, so I'm going to zoom in here. This right here is a feature line. If you look at the art right up here, it's feature line EP4. And what I do is I drape it using the road option, which for some reason it's off. Let me turn it back on. So if you look here, again, they added this a couple of versions ago. So right now, this is relative to a surface, which is my road. I'm going to do a Control A here. Oh, it is actually working. Yeah, it turns out only one feature. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, it's working just fine. So if you look over here, these other vertices are not on the surface, so they are using absolute elevation. This one here is the only one. So basically when I started this project, I came off of this elevation, right? And then I went down and started doing my grading that way. Now this one here should be on the surface. It should be working, but anyway, that's fine. Basically, that's all you do is you just go over here, select your feature line, go to Elevation Editor, and then do a Control A inside here, click here, pick the surface you want it to be with, and then simply click this drop down and relative from surface. And now you'll notice that it shows you, here we go. So now I've got these 3 vertices, or these 2 right here, that are relative, and you want that 0, it's reading the road surface. So if the road changes, it'll automatically update, and then I can see the actual grades. One of the other things that I do for, corridor modeling is this. You'll see here, I have a feature line. So basically there's curb and gutter happening here, and then we're using a ditch to control where I want this to go. I'm going all the way down here to this ditch here. Now, what you'll notice is I did something else here. I had to do a berm. Now, how did I know to do that berm? Well, let me show you. If I go ahead and select this corridor model, let's just merge regions. I'll click here, and then I'll press escape. And you'll notice what basically is happening is this. I'll go to the object viewer, and if I push up here, right, here's my ditch. It's in cut, and then what happens? It ends up in fill. That's not a big deal. All I have to do is where that ends up happening is I will split the region. I'll select this, split region, and I'll hover. And you'll notice here what I can do as a little tip here is I can actually, to make sure I'm getting at least a 1-foot ditch, I'm going to snap here. Look at the status bar, 123.7. And this is 123.1, so only 0.6 of a ditch. Let me go a little farther up. 123 point, come on, pop up. Usually takes a second to pop up. Let me try this one here. 123.7, 123 point, come on. That's a little weird. It should be popping up. For some reason, there we go, 123.8. 123.1. So I'm going to do it over here because I've got about a foot ditch. I'll split the region there. And then if we look at my subassembly or my assembly, what I've done, I've got this really simple one. So the target not found, again, it's working no matter what. But I want to shut this one off and turn this one on. So if you look here, I call that one left berm 2. This is left ditch 1 probably if I hover over this one. Yep, left back slope 1, sorry. So I'm going to activate this one to shut it off, activate this one or target it to shut this one or to turn this one on. All I have to do is edit targets, pick here, and I'll press enter. And then notice how I've got these whole numbers. That's what helps me decipher which one I want to target. And I'm going to click on target offset here. And I'm going to go ahead and pick my edge of pavement as the thing to target because I have this line that's right there that's perpendicular from it. So that will then turn this one on, which will then turn it off, right? It activates it by targeting it, and I'll target this one with the same exact polyline. Press enter, and then rebuild, click OK, and it inserts the berm just at that station. And of course, I have the surface here. One last tip, I know I'm really short for time, just to kind of point this out, always, always, always make separate surfaces of the things you're doing. So my road is its own surface. My ditch is its own surface. My daylighting is its own surface. These feature lines are then put into the combined proposed, and I paste in all the other surfaces that I need. That way, when all is said and done, if I go ahead and pick on my big overall surface, everything is all interlinked, right? There's my ditch, there's my road, there's my curb and gutter. Okay, I actually accidentally put the curb and gutter in there for the whole thing, but that's easy enough to fix. I can just delete it. If I just pick here, yeah, I put that in there accidentally. Delete that. Now that's gone. And now I've got, let's make sure I get the right one. Object viewer, right? There's my ditch. There's my curb and gutter. And obviously all the slopes and elevations come right from the surface. And of course I can see how everything's flowing with these slope arrows. That's another tip there, that if you're not using these, definitely, I just copy these all over the place. That way I can just move them around or copy them and see what my actual slope is. That way, as I'm making changes, everything updates automatically. I'm seeing it live, right? All right, so I'm a little bit over, I apologize. Let me get back to the PowerPoint here. Are there any questions?
Okay, so since we are a little tight on time, I think we're just going to call it there. But
Okay.
that was awesome. Thank you so much, Seth. If anybody does have any additional questions or anything, you can go ahead and email us at info@ddscad.com, and we'll go ahead and pass those along to Seth. Do we have one more slide in there? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So thank you all for being here today. Like I said, this webinar will be emailed to you, the video, as well as it'll be on our YouTube channel pretty shortly here. And if you need any additional information, training, support, software pricing, whatever it might be, you can call us at 305-445-6480 or email us at info@ddscad.com. All right, everybody have a great weekend.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.